Hi, it's Paula from Dove Audio. I wanted to record a quick video about the MuSeq sequencer. There are a lot of features in this and I wanted to cram a lot of features into a small space because I personally have quite limited space in my racks, and as much as I love the big old 10-step sequencers that are 8U wide, I find some of the features quite limiting, and I wanted to improve on that. So what we've got here is we have 8 steps, which you can see here, going from 1 to 8. And there are 2 channels of CV and gate. This is channel A. You can see here the A. If I swap over to channel B, you can see channel B. Channel B can be configured as note or just a CV. At the moment, I've got it configured as a CV, so I can control the waveform on the WTF oscillator, which I'll show you in a moment. You've got the sort of sequence control here and some other controls for inputs, outputs, clock source, and so on. Then you've got bank play mode, which I'll come to, load and save. So there is quite a lot in here. Now, a few features: 8 knobs, 8 buttons, 8 LEDs, 8 LCDs. There is an SD card down here, which all your sequences and bank plays and everything are stored on. There's a USB port here, which is going to be used for updating, and I'm working on adding USB MIDI in so you can sync via USB MIDI. There is CV and gate for channel A, CV and gate for channel B. There are 2 inputs and 2 outputs. 2 outputs are digital, so you can have these running a start run and a clock line to drive other step sequencers. These 2 are either analog or digital. You can have them as, doesn't really matter, so you can have it controlling the tempo, or you can have it doing a start stop. Depends on what you want. The 2 are pretty freely assignable to almost any feature. There will be 2 5-pin sockets here. These are for MIDI, MIDI in, MIDI out. I've got MIDI clock sync working, so I've not plugged that. I'm hoping I can get DIN sync in as well, so if you've got an old DR909 with DIN sync or one of the other classic old Rolands, that should work. Ignore this little dangly wire and switch. This is just for my debugging at the moment. That won't be there, I promise. The front panel itself is plastic. It's 3D printed. I wanted to get a metal one, but that's on order. That's about 3 weeks away, and I kind of didn't want to pause development while I waited for that, so I had a very quick 3D print of a panel. It's not perfect, but it works. So let's go into a few of the features. So let's start with a very simple pattern. I'm going to load a pattern. I'm going to try, I think pattern 6 is, let's go with pattern 7. I know that's a basic pattern. So here I have everything set as C, so when I press start, you can hear it's really quite boring. To change a note, you can just not the most musical, but you know, it's there. So let's try and dial in something a bit more musical. I don't know. So as you can hear, you can change the notes on the fly. You've got a 4-octave range, and you will be able to change that. So at the moment it's just preset to 4 octaves, just so I've got something consistent to work with. Now the knobs and the switches have a number of modes. It will be easier when there's a metal panel and I've got all the silk screen printing on to see what all the functions are. This is your run stop. As you can tell, I've been using that. So at the moment the knobs control the note, and you can see on the display there's a C0 with a sort of a box drawn around it. Now I can change what the knobs do by pressing this button. So now what I'm doing is I'm changing the step length. So currently it's set to eighths. So I can make that a bar long. Well, that bar's a bit long, so let's change this. Let's have a couple of quarter triplets in there. So this is quite a unique feature of the sequencer. To get this with a lot of traditional analog sequencers, you'd have to have another channel and feed that into the control voltage of a clock and have that clock clocking your step sequencer. So by doing that, you've lost a channel and you've lost another module, whereas here it's all in one module. I'm just going to set it back to all eighths, otherwise you can change it while it's playing. There you go. So I know you can go all the way up to 30 seconds and all the way up to 1 bar per note if you want. I just keep it on eighths because there's 8 steps in the sequence. So the next thing you can do is you can change the gate length. Now this is where things start getting quite interesting. So if I push this button again, the box moves around and you can see it's on M for medium gate length. So there are 5 gate lengths. There are short, medium, long. There is also a double ratchet and a triple ratchet. There is a legato mode, which I'll come on to in a moment. So for now, these are all on medium, which is kind of the de facto. It's half of the step length, so the gate is on for half of the length of the step. Now you can make this, if I make these all short, you can hear that they're short. If I make it long, just tweak decays a little bit. So this lets you build up some quite rhythmical patterns and do quite a lot with it. I'm going to set these back to mediums, and then I'm going to show you the ratcheting. So here we have double ratchet. So doesn't change the step length, just plays the gate twice, and there's a triple. There we go. Turn the So quite a lot of fun to be had there. So that's all the modes for the knobs. So I've gone back to our boring pattern of just all the same note, and I want to talk to you now about the switch modes. So like the knobs, there are a number of modes. At the moment they're in gate mode and the LEDs in the switches are reflecting that all the gates are on. So if I want, I can turn the gates off. There you go. So you can turn the gates off. There is also a legato and a skip mode. So what I'm going to do now is leave it running, and hopefully you can hear me above the synth. So let's put these back on just because. Let's put on some legatos. So you can hear those 2 notes are now tied together. Let's go with that one. Now we'll go on to a skip, and we'll just skip some notes. Doesn't have to be in a sequence, you can do it whichever way around you want. So those are the 3 modes. Now I wanted to start trying to turn off some notes. Let's turn off that one. I'll go back to the skip mode and turn all the skips off, so I'm back to playing all 8 notes, although I've got the gate off. So I'm going to stop that. There we go. So there are a lot of things you can do quite quickly and easily using the knobs and just by cycling through the modes. So you have gate, legato and skip. It's quite a good way of just navigating through in a small space rather than having 3 sets of knobs. So what I'll do now is I'll talk about channel B. So here's channel B. What we can do here is not quite as fully functioned as what you can do with channel A, because channel B's steps are linked to channel A's steps. So if channel A step 1 is a bar long, then channel B's step 1 is also a bar long. You do have independent control of the gate length and ratcheting and the pitch, which I'll show you. So here I have the channel B is set to CV mode. So when I turn the knob, you can see the bar go all the way up. And these is 511, was it 512 steps? So it's all the way from there, all the way down to 0. So nice smooth CVs can be played and stored. It's not big chunks and steps. And of course, by pressing the knob mode button, you can go over and change the gate lengths. You're not going to hear much in the way of gate lengths because I have the gate on here triggering an envelope which is doing something with the oscillator. So what I'll do is I'll show you what I've got set up. So I could put that back to medium. Let's go back to here. So here I have the second CV controlling the waveform with the oscillator. And as you'll notice at the moment, there are no gates on. So if I put a gate on here, and what I've now got is I've got the gate coming out, which is going to an envelope, and that's triggering the width. So if I turn that down, so we'll bring them both in. So again, you have that ability to create rhythms, and you can use it as a completely separate channel, which I'll show you how to do in a second. And likewise with the gate mode, you can have gate and you can have legato. So I can do legato and step on, or gate on off, sorry. So what I'm going to show you now is the pattern control mode. So we've got channel A, we've got channel B, which I've just shown you, and I've got the sequence control mode. So in here I can change the channel B from being in the CV to a note mode. So if I go into note mode, you can see here I can change these notes. I kind of like having it in CV mode because I like having it control the waveform. Sometimes you want just a raw CV, sometimes you want a quantized CV. So that lets you do that. There are a number of options here. So at the moment it's set to an internal clock. You can sync it from MIDI, and I'm adding a number of other things. There are 2 inputs. This is input A and this is input B. Input A at the moment is set to control the note, so you can add in a CV for controlling the offset. So if you want to transpose a sequence from another sequence, or from a CV gate from a keyboard, you can do that. You can also control the tempo, and load different patterns and all sorts of things. So it's quite flexible in that way, and you just turn it to change where it goes and what it does. So I don't really need 2 the same, don't need 2 controlling the tempo, but you can. These 2 control the provide digital outputs. This is a start-stop signal, so when you press start, this will go high, and this will start generating clocks. So you can sync an external sequencer to this. At the moment you can see I've got it set to 16 pulses per bar. You can go all the way up to 32, and there's 24 and 8 and 6 and all sorts of odd things. So it depends what you want to do with the external. You could have it just triggering in an envelope, giving you noise shots like a hi-hat, I guess. There will be some other features I'm adding onto these inputs because they can be analog and digital. So you'll be able to have it say do start, stop, that kind of thing. I am planning on adding in the ability that you can synchronize this sequencer, the MuSeq, to another sequencer by providing a clock pulse input. I'm working on that one, so I'm doing my best. Other features that are stored, that you've got the first note, the last note, and the direction. These are stored per pattern, so it's worth remembering these. So if I start our sequence, you can hear our basic sequence going, changing the waveform. I can change the start note, so let's 6 and 6 is a bit boring. So you can do all those fairly traditional Berlin schooly things. Now we have some directions, and these are quite good fun. So we have a forward direction, we have a backward direction, rather unimaginatively. We have a pendulum which does forward then backwards. We have a forward and backward, which is like the pendulum, with the key difference being that it does play the first step twice and the last step twice. So it keeps you at 16 beats to the bar, or 16 steps, I should say. Then we go on to some slightly funkier ones. So we have a random. This is a true random. Could play anything, completely controlled by nothing. Now we have a Brownian motion one. This has a 50% chance of going forward and a 50% chance of going backwards. Now I've got a Brownian 33. So here you have a 33% chance of going forwards, 33% chance of going backwards, and a 33% chance of playing the same note. Then you have a 5-2, which is supposed to be 50, 25, 25, but I run out of digits. So here you have a 50% chance of going forward a step, 25% chance of playing the same step, and 25% chance of going back a step. So this gives you a bit more chance of the sequence progressing, but you still get a little bit of randomness in there. So that's quite a powerful feature in itself. What I want to do now is go on to some of the other features. So the next one up is the bank play. So this is the bank play mode. Here you have 8 patterns, and you can choose how many times the pattern plays before it moves on to the next one. So it's a great way of creating long sequences using multiple 8-step patterns. But more than that, you can be clever with the way that they're arranged. So if I set this to 1, what I have here is sequence 0 will play once, then sequence 2 will play once, then it will go back to sequence 0. It'll skip the others because they're not enabled, which is what these switches do. Now, the previous version of the hardware didn't have this extra button. This extra button is the bank play enable. When this is on, you can be in any of the other modes and the bank play will continue playing. So if I go back to the first page, you will see we have the pattern 0, and then it will load pattern 2, and you can see the display is updating, and it's the same with the bank B. Everything changes, so it's quite a nice way of seeing what's going on with the patterns. Now what you can do as well is you can change the number of repeats. So if I make this 2, this one will play twice, and then it will go to that one. 16 is probably a bit high, but yeah, you can go all the way up to 16 repeats. So if you want, you could have the 8 steps repeating 16 times across 8 patterns and give you an enormously long sequence. It's kind of a bit like a sort of song mode, I guess. Let's change that to 4 and 5. There we go. So you can do what sounds like a 16-note sequence is actually 2 8-step sequences, and again you can see them changing. so that's quite a good feature. You can just turn it off and it will just stay on that pattern. So you can use it however you want to do chaining of patterns, song mode, really long patterns. And I remember that these are all stored, so the directions and the first and last steps are all stored as well. Obviously not things like the clocking, what these two do, and the output clock rate, but the top 4 are remembered per pattern. Next thing I want to show you is the loading and saving. It's kind of the boring bit. Basically you have 8 patterns per bank. You have 8 banks. Here you can see I'm in bank 0 and pattern 1 is loaded, which is that one. If I want to load a different pattern, I can just go there and that one's loaded, or I can go to pattern 2. So you can load quite quickly on the fly, you can change banks and so on. So pretty straightforward. Next one is the save mode. This changes to an S. And when you're in save mode, you can choose a pattern to save. So it shows me that pattern 2 is the current active one. So I can say, I like that a lot, but I want to use it in bank 1. All right, let's go bank 7. And I want it in pattern 0. So I press that and it saves it. Let's save it again into pattern 1. So, and you can do this whilst it's running. The key thing when you're accessing the SD card for loading and saving is the lights do stop briefly. The sequencer still carries on, but the lights do stop updating because I don't have the resource to be able to load from SD and update the LEDs. At least my coding skills are probably not that great. So that's kind of a quick run through. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the sequencer covered. Only other thing that I forgot to mention, of course, is this is the tempo knob, kind of important. So you can change the tempo. Kind of important. And at any point you can enable the pattern bank play, and then you're into bank play mode. And disable the bank play. So that's a cover of sort of overview, if you like, of the features we have at the moment. There's still a bit more work to do. I'm pretty okay with the features. There's a couple of things missing, as I said, like the USB MIDI and the clock input, but that's pretty much all there. I'm just debugging now. Next stages for me are getting some metal panels rather than these little plastic things, which is, they're okay, but it was just a temporary placeholder while the panels are on order because they take a few weeks, and getting them out to beta testers, and then I shall be heading away to a store near you soon, as they say. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate this was a long video. I tried to keep it as short as I could, but there is a lot in this little sequencer, and it is, I forgot to say, 3U wide, so it packs a hell of a bang for a 3U. There we go. Thanks for watching.